friend of mine and I made a pact to try and see all of the movies nominated in the Best Picture category for the Oscars. The awards are next Sunday. One of those movies is called Moneyball, starring Brad Pitt. Now, for those of you who haven't seen Moneyball, it's a baseball story. It's a true story based on the events of the 2002 baseball season. The focus of the movie is the method by which players are recruited to major league teams. Billy Bean is the major character played by Brad Pitt. He's the general manager of the Oakland A's. Now, as Billy puts it in Moneyball, there are rich teams, then there are poor teams, then there is 50 feet of space, and there's the Oakland A's. Recruiting great players is about who can afford to pay them most money, hence the name of the movie, Moneyball. The team owner makes it very clear that there will be no more money coming, so Billy is intrigued when he crosses paths with a young Yale graduate named Peter Brand. His specialty is statistics. Peter is an incrementalist. He has a theory that building a winning baseball team is possible using ball players with skills that are underrated by a system that relies on arbitrary factors such as age, previous injury. And within this group of players, there are players who get on base. And once they get on base, they get around the bases. And those are called runs. And you get enough runs, and you win baseball games. He compares his underrated players to the inhabitants of the island of misfit toys. Now, Billy Bean attempts to assemble a winning baseball club with a limited budget, employing Peter's computer-generated analysis of these players he should draft. After overcoming false starts, a non-compliant coach, and widespread criticism, he takes the team from a string of losses to an amazing mid-season turnaround, winning 20 consecutive games. And this sets an American League record. Sadly, the Oakland A's go on to lose in the playoffs. It appears that everyone, and there are many, many critics, who expressed doubt in Billy and this new method have been validated by the A's poor finish. However, the ultimate loss of the playoffs is not the cause of the funk in which Billy finds himself. Billy confides in Peter that his goal was to transform the method of recruiting baseball players, that only when it changed and how they recruited people could he deem his efforts to be a success. For Billy, this really just wasn't about winning the pennant. After his confession to Peter, Peter entreats Billy to watch a replay on a monitor of a player of another team during a game. Clearly, this player is not a strong hitter. The camera pans in very closely as he hits the pitch, and without looking up, this player lumbers to first base. He throws himself on first, and he lays there like a whale in dry dock. Now, the clip goes on to show that the other players are gesturing and they're laughing, and one assumes that it's laughing at the player's expense. But then the camera pans out, and what we come to realize is that the ball has flown over the fence and into the stands. Peter looks at Billy and he says, "That hitter was so busy trying to make first base, he didn't even realize he hit a home run." The camera follows the player as he rounds the bases to the cheers of the crowd. Peter then says to Billy, "That's you. You hit a home run and you don't even realize it." And he goes on to say, "You do realize what I'm saying, right?" And Billy responds, "I do understand what an analogy is." The transformation in player recruitment is confirmed when Billy is offered a job by the Red Sox owners that has a salary of $12.5 million. And the owner also goes on to validate Billy by acknowledging that baseball will forevermore be played differently. The major league teams go on to adopt Billy's algorithms. How often do we meet somebody in our lives like a Peter Brand? Someone who adds perspective to us by listening to our real concerns. Consider for a moment the benefits of an extra pair of ears at an important appointment. In times of crisis, when we benefit from an empathetic hearing of our concerns, providing the opportunity for us to clarify our thoughts. no judgment, no instant solutions, just a chance to talk things through. Stephen's ministers from this congregation afford all of us such an opportunity. In 1990, St. Andrew's embarked on becoming a Stephen's ministry congregation. After 50 hours of training, I was part of the class that graduated in 1994. What I found incredibly compelling within the Stephen's ministry was the aspect of faith in action. Now, my Christianity has always been something deeply personal to me, and becoming a Stephen's minister provided me the opportunity to walk the talk. Walking with someone during times of challenge, providing the opportunity to express our faith in God, or indeed to question that faith when we were being tested, without being judged and without being criticized. Helping to create a safe place in which we could feel comfortable expressing feelings, fears, sorrow. The people who receive care from Stephen's ministers have needs as varied as they themselves are. It may be the struggles of a new parent dealing with the challenges of looking after a new family. Maybe coping with the illness of a spouse and the challenges of dealing with whatever that new normal is going to become. Or coming to terms with emerging physical deficits as we age and wondering, even fearing, what comes next. Now, my very first assignment as a Stephen's minister was with someone who was experiencing extreme loneliness and exhibiting some confusion after undergoing some major surgery. Each week when I went to visit, I had to reintroduce myself. I have to tell you, I started feeling like I was failing Stephen's Ministry 101. Because my care receiver was never quite sure why I was there, I would have to reestablish that no, I wasn't her new cleaning lady. And we would end up playing cards or going through a family photo albums because it was something familiar to her and it brought her comfort. After several weeks into our relationship, there was a diagnosis of dementia, and she moved into a long-care nursing facility and received appropriate care. Another care receiver and I used to meet in Victoria Park whenever life became overwhelming to her as a single parent. We would feed the ducks, something that I'm sure contravenes a bylaw. And we would walk and we would talk. She would talk and I would listen. Life is a journey and not a destination, and none of us know where our life journey may take us. I had no idea that when I trained as a Stephen's minister in 1994, that it would be equipping me for a future role as a boss, and in 2004 as Chief Government Whip in the Paul Martin government. A colleague of mine in Ottawa had a university-age daughter who was receiving cancer treatments every Friday. If the test went well, she got her chemotherapy and she got really ill for several days. If her blood work was off, she was sent home feeling that she had failed a critical test and disappointed everyone. As you can imagine, it was an incredibly stressful time for this family. It was exacerbated by my colleague's absence from his family in order to be in Ottawa. I encouraged him to skip meetings every Friday. He needed permission to make the choice of putting his family cares above his professional responsibilities. Now, sometimes unintentionally, I've created stress in the lives of others. I'm a great believer in professional development opportunities. And when I found myself supervising several staff, I asked each of them to identify what professional development opportunity they'd like to pursue in the next several months. Now, one of the staff was a young man who'd been working at his job for 11 years. And actually, he was the third generation of his family to fulfill this post. Objectively contemplating his future and what professional development might be meaningful to him absolutely rattled him. We had many long discussions, and he confessed that he couldn't imagine his life if he retired from the position he then held. He was beginning to question something that up until that point in time he had taken as a given. He eventually sought a different career path, and he's never looked back. He created that change in his life. Now, often change is not of our own choosing. It's It's absolutely devastating to find out you have MS, or that your bright, articulate 23-year-old son has been diagnosed with being bipolar. Each of us is someone's child, perhaps a sister or a brother, mother, father, spouse, or grandparent. What impacts the lives of the people we love shapes our lives as well. Knowing that there is someone with whom you can confide as a Stevens minister is an absolute blessing. Knowing that whatever you confide in them is confidential and will remain that way is possible when you have a relationship with a Stevens minister. Life can be rough and tumble. As people of faith, we depend on one another as we make this journey through life. As a congregation, we depend on our ministers, our clergy, for guidance. They provide it to us, as well as specific guidance to our Stevens ministers. The cup of cold water has always symbolized the role of a Stevens minister for me. As members of the congregation, Stevens ministers offer support, not as trained psychologists or therapists, but as people making a similar journey and experience the same everyday challenges that their care receivers are going through. Sometimes the best listening happens when we're engaged in an activity. This could involve a weekly meeting for coffee, walks along the Iron Horse Trail, or a drive in the country, or a cup of cold water when you're thirsty. Sometimes everyday stresses mount up. It becomes cumulative. The usual challenges become overwhelming in the face of an acute event like an illness or a job loss. Like an already too full suitcase, new events exceed our capacity to carry on. Depending on the Stevens minister, the act of sharing our burden helps us decide what we need to unpack in order to continue on our journey. Now, Stevens ministers don't tell you what to take out of your suitcase, and they don't offer instant solutions for your anger, your fear, or your guilt. But what they do is allow you as a care receiver to work through your issues. No judgment, just empathy and a question. How can I help? What they are trained to do is to listen with their full attention, reflect back to their care receiver what they're expressing, much like Peter Brand does for Billy Bean in the Moneyball. Although I have to tell you, I don't know that we're all as articulate about our angst as Billy was able to be. Our challenge as people of faith is to reflect how we can connect with the people in our lives. To ask ourselves, is our emotional suitcase filled to capacity? Our opportunity at St. Andrews is to assess if we could benefit from a relationship with a Stevens minister. Now, I make no prediction as to which movie is going to win Best Oscar next week. But I do know the difference that choosing to walk in faith with a Stevens minister can make in the quality of life in this journey we all share.